Talk of the Bay. This is your host, Suki Wessling, and we are starting today's show with a pre-recorded interview with Cristi Măcelaru, better known in Santa Cruz as Cristi. He's the music director and conductor of the Cabrillo Festival of Contemporary Music. The festival takes place in Santa Cruz over 2 weekends, July 30th through August 13th. Information about this year's festival can be found at cabrillomusic.org. Cristi has been the music director of the festival since 2016. After this interview, we'll welcome live guests, including 2 of the composers featured at this year's festival. Welcome to Talk of the Bay. We're excited that you'll be joining us here in Santa Cruz again soon.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Let's start by getting a bit of an overview of the pieces you selected for this year's program.
First of all, thank you for the invitation. And, it's so wonderful for us to be able year after year to present the program that the Cabrillo Festival does. And our signature really is the new. It's the idea that everything that we do is heard either for the first time, or it's heard for the first time on the West Coast, or it's really heard for the first time for our audience. And this concept to create only the new and the latest, newest goes hand in hand with our devotion and our commitment to creativity and to the creative process, really, which is why we also bring most of the composers, or all the composers that we can bring, that have composed for us. We bring them to the festival so they can be part of the process itself. And we invite the audience through our open rehearsals to come and be part of the process themselves. So this is just a small little overview of how we do it. And then what we do is music. This year we have a special focus, actually, that it's given to the percussion section as a musical instrument. And we are presenting 3 very important and wonderful concerti for percussion and orchestra. The first one I will talk about is the double concerto by Jennifer Higdon, who was written for one of our own percussion players, Svet Stoyanov, and the principal percussionist of the Houston Symphony, Matthew Strauss. And this concerto, this idea came as a result of their friendship. So I'm very happy that we can present this finally in Cabrillo. It was a pandemic postponement as well. Then another concerto that is very close to my heart, because I appreciate and respect his music and his work, is Tan Dun's Tears of Nature. And this is a response that he had as an artist to the Fukushima disaster, the nuclear power plant failure. And he conceived this concerto as a response to the way that nature responds to what happens around us. And I'm so happy that we can present this composition, because I think it's quite wonderful what Mr. Tan Dun is able to do, even beginning with 2 rocks that are singing together in some way. It's really quite unique. And then we have the concerto Rise and Fly by Julia Wolf, which is another percussion concerto that uses actually the human body as the main instrument to create percussive sounds. So there's a lot of really interesting sounds that come out of the soloist's hands, really, literally speaking. So this is at the core of the festival, is this focus on the 3 big works for percussion. Then we have other composers, young and old, that are coming. We are bringing a few composers for the first time to the festival. I'm happy. One of the composers that we were going to present last summer, who actually, because of a COVID cancellation in the orchestra, we were not able to present her music, is Sarah Kirkland Snyder. And we have changed slightly the composition that we were going to present, and instead we asked her if she were to pick the piece that she would like us to do, which one would it be? And then she asked us to do her composition called Forward into Light, which, as she writes, it's a meditation on perseverance, bravery, and alliance. inspired by the work of American women suffragists. And this is a theme that we've had before in the festival, but it's something that it's very important for me to continue talking about and to continue putting in the forefront. Then we have another composer on the same concert by the name Borayun, which is a composer that I met several years ago, and she really struck me as an incredible voice. And this composition that we are presenting, it's a composition that she wrote, combining a little bit from her past, both the two worlds, basically. The composition is called The Wind of Two Koreas because it looks at folk music from both South and North Korea, and she combines them in this way. So it's really a beautiful composition. And then we have, on the same concert, we have Sebastian Currier, who is a composer. Those that know contemporary music, especially American contemporary music, will be very familiar with Mr. Currier's compositions. And I met him again many years ago while performing in Washington, and immediately have tried to bring him back. Mm-hmm. Then we have another composer that was with us already, but he's a young, brilliant mind. I love the way that he writes for the orchestra, and he's able to bring in all kinds of interesting ideas. I'm talking about Peter Shin, and his composition is called Relapse. And I cannot wait to share this with the audience because it's always both elements of comedy and fun, but it's so witty and so intelligent. We have another composer that was with us last summer, and unfortunately we could not perform her composition because of the COVID situation. So we are bringing back Water Sings Fire by Andrea Reinkemeyer. Then we have a West Coast premiere in a very big, important work by Carlos Simon. And this composition is called The Tales of Folklore Symphony. And Carlos is a composer we presented perhaps 4 or 5 years ago in our workshop as part of our composers workshop when he was quite young. And I'm so happy to see the incredible success that he's had as composer in residence for the National Symphony in Washington, which is actually how this composition came to be, because he wrote this for them. I think anyone that will hear Carlos's music, he draws inspiration from his background as a church musician as well, and his family's background. And it's really quite a beautiful story of American folklore and of American idioms. Then we have another composer that we featured in the past by the name Gabriela Smith. And this composition, which is actually the only composition that I cannot pronounce because I just don't know how to pronounce it. It's a mathematical equation, really. But what I know, it's a West Coast premiere, and it's fascinating. Gabriela always uses different forms of inspiration, really, to do something in music. And I'm always particularly interested to see what she comes up with. Then we have Gabriela Ortiz's Zam, which is a West Coast premiere, and this is a composition that I immediately fell in love with when I heard it, and I'm so happy that we can present it for the first time. Olga Neuwirth is a composer as well that has written a piece that I look sometimes for the perfect way to end an evening. And listening to her Dreidel, which is a US premiere piece, I thought, my gosh, this is really the right way to send the audience back home with excitement and with this, kind of look at life that is so beautiful and in some ways a little crazy, but it's exactly what you would expect from that name as well.
This is Talk of the Bay on K-Squid. You are listening to a pre-recorded interview with Cristi Măcelaru, conductor of the Cabrillo Festival, which starts in less than a week. This segment will be followed by a live interview with composers Anna Clyne and Gabriela Ortiz.
We have an interesting focus in the festival. The co-founder of the festival, Robert Hughes, who was himself a composer, very accomplished composer, unfortunately passed away. And we wanted to create a tribute to his music. So we are looking at two of his compositions, actually, on two different programs. This is a little bit unusual because usually we have only composers that are alive that are with us. But in some ways, Robert will be with us forever because he is really so much at the heart of what the festival represents and what it is. And on the final concert, an artist that I have admired and I've watched from a distance for a few years now. I'm talking about Xavier Foley, who is an extraordinary talent as a performer on the double bass. And I have listened to some etudes that he composed for the double bass, and we reached out to him and we said, we want you to write a full concerto. Can you write something for full orchestra? And it was quite interesting because when we approached him, he had yet to compose for a full orchestra, but now he has done it, and it's a piece that is actually another double concerto, so to speak, for Eunice Kim on the violin and himself on the double bass. And it's a world premiere. It's a festival co-commission, and I'm so happy to finally be able to work with him. Then we have, of course, the very wonderful, very well-known, really family for Cabrillo Festival, Kevin Putz, and his concerto for orchestra, which we are able to do the West Coast premiere. It's also a co-commission of the festival. And on the same concert, another young composer that I really like, Dan Caputo, who is from Los Angeles area, and he has a very interesting way of manipulating time and manipulating rhythm in a way that it's really quite. I mean, in a way, it's like, staring at one of those paintings that make you feel like you're seeing things start to swirl around. That is the impression I get performing Dan's music. You listen, and then all of a sudden you feel like you're starting to understand a completely different pulse that it's starting to emerge from within. And then to close the festival, of course, we are paying a huge tribute to Ellen Primack, who is retiring after more than 30 years at the head executive director of the festival. And we decided to commission a piece for her in her honor. And we asked her to pick a composer. And she picked Anna Clyne, who, of course, is very well known to the festival goers. And Anna wrote a piece that is not just it's a bit of an innovation for all of us as well, because it involves quite a bit of electronics and live electronics. And she collaborated with her partner in creating this composition. So I'm looking forward to these many double collaborations in the festival, that it's another theme that has emerged as we created the season.
Wonderful. I noticed a couple of the pieces that you mentioned are music that's never been heard before. And I wondered if you could speak a little bit about that's so different from programming a piece that's in the classical canon, obviously, is something the musicians are already going to be familiar with. Programming a piece that at least has been performed so you can listen to a recording is, a step past that. But then how do you go about learning this music and presenting it to the musicians?
Well, the first step is having the courage and the trust in the composer that you commission to write a composition, that they will write a piece that you will like, and the audience will like, and the orchestra will be able to perform. So we always take a small leap of faith when we commission our composers to write something that we then premiere. It's not as simple as one might think, that you say, well, you just commission someone and what happens, because we take our performances very, very seriously. And after that leap of faith, really, I approach every composition in the same way, which is I try to understand the composer's unique language. And I do that by finding the consistencies within the music that they write. I try to document myself by listening to as much of their music and their other kind of compositions. And then a voice starts to emerge from within, and patterns start to emerge from the composition that I'm studying. And then I feel like I can do it justice. But in case I fail miserably, the wonderful thing in Cabrillo is that the composer is present with us and is able to set me back on the right path.
Has that happened to you?
Yes, many times, and I keep that possibility and the door open. And those that are able to come to the rehearsal process as well, I think they will be pleasantly surprised by the atmosphere and the exchange that is constantly in existence between the orchestra, myself, and the composer, because we always constantly, our goal is to create the best performance and the best atmosphere for that performance in the concert. And I hold nothing back. There's nothing about my ego. There's nothing about anybody's ego or personality. We go after the most important factor, which is the music itself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I wanted to point out, you mentioned the rehearsals, that anyone listening, you can walk into open rehearsals. All you have to do is go to the website, cabrillomusic.org, and look up the schedule, and there's open rehearsals that anyone can walk into for free. And it's a wonderful, wonderful resource for the community. And so my final question, let's imagine you're speaking to someone who knows nothing about contemporary music. What do you think is special about the listening experience at the Cabrillo Festival? What do you think that someone who walks in knowing nothing might be able to get from it?
Well, I think in some ways, actually, music is never new, because music has been around for as long as there have been human beings. We have always tried to find a way to express who we are, to express our deepest emotions. And we have always used art to do that. Was it a special dance? Was it a special painting? Was it something that we sketched on a rock and tried to chisel a different figurine out of it? And of course, music was the easiest way to be able to express ourselves, because we create sounds from the moment we are born. And in some ways, that's what I mean by the statement that music is never new. But what's really fascinating is to hear how different people have this relationship with their own music and the way that they conceive the organization of different sounds in a new way. To me, it's one of the most fascinating things that can happen, because it opens up the possibilities of what you have not imagined. And it's so important in life to maintain this window open, where you are constantly allowing yourself to discover something better, something more beautiful, something more profound. And to me, discovering new music and listening to composers that are arranging these old gestures and the same notes that Bach and Beethoven used, but in a way that is their own language, this really brings me into the intimacy of their own world. And I really crave that. I really become alive when I hear that, because it's about the way that we share who we are and what we represent that is important.
Well, thank you so much for speaking with K-Squid. Following this interview, we'll be talking to Gabriela Ortiz and Anna Clyne, so you did a wonderful introduction for the two of them as well. We're looking forward to welcoming you back to Santa Cruz.
Thank you so much.
All right, and you are listening to Talk of the Bay. I'm your host, Suki Wessling, and this week I'm featuring interviews about the upcoming Cabrillo Festival of Contemporary Music. You just heard an interview I recorded with Cristi Măcelaru on Tuesday while he was in Paris. If you missed part of it, you can return to ksqd.org later to listen to the podcasted version. I'd like to welcome the first of my three live guests, we hope, today. Gabriela Ortiz is a composer who is in Mexico, I believe. And yes, you can unmute your mic and say hello, Gabriela.
Hi, how are you?
Hi, so nice to hear you.
Yes, thank you so much for the invitation.
Of course. So before I talk to Gabriela, I'm going to play a little clip so that you can get a sense of Gabriela's music, Altar de Neon. And so everyone enjoy listening to that, and we will be right back to talk about music. There's a lot. And Gabriela, welcome back. Welcome to the show. And let's just start by talking a little bit about your composition. You can maybe tell us a little bit about what we just heard and what what you feel like you do when you compose.
Well, the piece that you just heard is a piece that is called Altar de Neon, Neon Altar. And it's a piece that I wrote a few years ago. I did my master's degree at England. And when I came back to Mexico, it was very important to me to get back to my roots and to get back to my own city. And I think that Altar de Neon it's a piece that it really reflects that idea of course, I learned a lot of things being abroad and being, exposed to new music in Europe. But then when I came back, I decided that I also wanted to get back to my roots and to find a common place between what I've learned in Europe and what I've learned when I was a student in England, and then what I have to say as a Mexican composer. So I think it's a piece that I like it. I like it very much because after being those years in UK, I think that I finally start finding my own voice, and this piece reflects that.
Can you tell us a little bit? As a Mexican composer, I know that your parents were deeply involved in Mexican folk music. So how do you use folk music and other music in your compositions?
Yes, my parents found this incredible folk music group called Los Folcloristas. So I grew up hearing this kind of music that was very natural during my childhood. So I started playing the guitar and playing all these, different instruments from all Latin America. And I think that my music reflects that influence, but it's not that I wanted to do that in a conscious way. I think it comes in a very natural way. I think that if my music sounds Mexican or Latin American, it's because I'm a Mexican composer. I grew up in Mexico City, and I eat tacos and I eat tortilla, and this is part of my culture. And so definitely something that is just there.
Yeah, that's going to be really interesting to hear. So your compositions, is it Sam? Is that how you say it? It's all in capitals.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's yeah. But the thing is, it's a very delicate question, because normally when I say I'm a Mexican composer, normally the canons of the European music is that they expect that the Latin American music should be sound in a certain way. That we have to feel in some labels. It has to be very rhythmic, and I think that Mexico is a very big country and it's multicultural. There are so many things going on in Mexico. So to make a definition about what Mexico is, it's very complex. But certainly, my music, yes, it has those characteristics, but it has other ones. And this is what I always try to say, that, we deserve a place in the canon of the classical music, or in the concert music, because we produce good music, not only because we are exotic, or this kind of thing that, oh, that's Mexico, Latin America, so that music can only fit in certain contexts, like fiesta. Oh yeah, fiesta Latin American, and it's more than that. It's much more than that. We have to offer so many. It's much deeper than that.
Well, I am really looking forward to hearing your piece, which is going to be performed at the Rise and Fly concert on Saturday, August 12th. So thank you so much for calling in, and we will. I'll look forward to hearing it.
Thank you so much for the invitation, and yes, I am also looking forward to hear my piece.
Okay. Thank you so much. All right. You are listening to Talk of the Bay on KSQD, and we are talking about the Cabrillo Festival of Contemporary Music. And I can now bring in Ellen Primack, the executive director. Ellen, hello.
Hi.
Here she is. It's always challenging in a community radio station when somebody has pressed a button that you didn't really know existed. So I tried pressing a whole bunch of buttons, and I found the one that had been turned off. That's how we do things around here. So I would also like to welcome the composer Anna Clyne, who is also online. Hello, Anna.
Hello.
Hello, there you are.
Hi, Anna.
Hi, Ellen. How are you?
So, I wanted the both of you together because I think that there's an aspect of this festival and of modern music that a lot of people don't know much about, and you two are involved in, which is the process of commissioning work. So as listeners who are familiar with the festival probably know, this is Ellen's last season as executive director. Ellen has been a visible force in this festival from the beginning, and we have all of us who are concert goers have seen her commanding the floor during concerts, and so Ellen's leaving. Ellen has been very, very influential in this festival. So the festival staff decided to ask Ellen to commission to choose a composer. Is that what happened?
Well, we have a longtime life board member, Fran Fisher, who's been with the festival longer than I, as our CFO. And when I made the announcement of my decision, she told our board president, Claire, that she would like to do something special in my honor, and might she commission something, which wasn't going to be a surprise, because I usually am the first person to bring that to Cristi, which I did. And he very kindly asked what would be most meaningful to me, who would be most meaningful to me. And without skipping a beat, I have had a fondness for both Anna and, in particular, her work for many years. She's been here many times over many years. And so I told Cristi that Anna would be my first choice if it was at all possible. It's a short work, and it's a short time frame that we gave her. And he said he would invite her, and then maybe Anna can tell how that story went from there.
Yeah, so I received an email from Cristi with the invitation, and I immediately knew that I wanted to do this because Cabrillo and Ellen have been so important for me as a composer and in my musical life, which started, almost 13 years ago, back in 2010, when Marin Alsop programmed a piece of mine. And I've been really fortunate to go back several times since and to really get to know the orchestra. So it was also an opportunity for me to say a little thank you to the orchestra, knowing the musicians really well by now, to really write with them in mind was a really special opportunity. So I said yes immediately.
Well, wonderful. So I wanted to give listeners will not hear this piece unless they come to the performance, which is what date, Ellen?
The performance is August 11th, but they can get a taste of it in open rehearsals.
Of course, the open rehearsals, which I mentioned during the pre-recorded segment with Cristi, are open to anyone who wants to walk in and hear the orchestra rehearsing, and it's a really cool experience. You can get information on cabrillomusic.org.
One other aspect of the commission which makes it so special was that Anna was kind enough to ask about me and what either poetry or art or writing, what would be important to me that might inspire her.
Uh-huh.
And the name is from Mary Oliver's poem Wild Geese, which was seminal to me, very important piece to me. And I mentioned it probably in our first discussion. And what did you say, Anna?
I had a copy of it by my desk, and I had just heard her before she passed away. She had done a recording on the radio program On Being, where she recited this poem, and it really stayed with me. So it immediately resonated with me and seemed like a good point of departure for the music.
Huh. What an interesting coincidence.
That's the fun part.
Yeah. So I wanted to give listeners a sense of your music. So we're going to play a short selection called Masquerade. And Anna, did you have anything you wanted to say about this before I play it?
Yes, so the performance you're going to hear is Marin Alsop conducting the BBC Symphony at the last night of the Proms back in 2013. And it's the world premiere performance of Masquerade, a short piece that was written especially to open the last night of Proms. It's very celebratory in nature.
All right, wonderful. So here we go with Masquerade. was hard to know where to break it, so I thought I'd just break it right there. So let me turn your sound back on, Anna. So Anna, tell us a little bit about the process that you use for composing. Where do you start?
I always start at the piano, so finding a melody or a harmonic progression that catches my ear. Even though I'm a pretty rusty pianist, but I have to have a connection to how it feels. And the thing about the piano, have the double basses down on your left hand and the flutes and piccolos up in the right there. So it gives you that resonance, which I really love. And then once I have some material, I then go to my computer. I use a notation software called Finale that plays back the music. So I find that a really helpful tool. And I use a pair of wireless headphones. And as I'm writing, I try to imagine if I was a dancer, how that would feel in the body. So that connection between music and physicality is really important part of my creative process. But in terms of the impetus, in the case of Wild Geese, the piece written for Ellen, it's also inspired by Ellen and the poem Wild Geese. So would you like me to read the poem? I have it here and it's quite short.
Sure,
I can share it with you. Yeah.
Sure, go ahead.
You do not have to be good. You do not have to walk on your knees for 100 miles through the desert repenting. You only have to let the soft animal of your body love what it loves. Tell me your despair, yours, and I will tell you mine. Meanwhile, the world goes on. Meanwhile, the sun and the clear pebbles of the rain are moving across the landscapes, over the prairies and the deep trees, the mountains and the rivers. Meanwhile, the wild geese, high in the clean blue air, are heading home again. Whoever you are, no matter how lonely, the world offers itself to your imagination, calls to you like the wild geese, harsh and exciting, over and over, announcing your place in the family of things. So it's very evocative and beautiful poem. So in the case of this piece, that was really the point of departure. And I started by finding some bird songs and then translating those to the piano and then finding melodies that I could riff on based on those.
So you said bird songs. Was that what you said?
Yes, some bird calls.
So which birds? I mean, geese are the obvious ones, but did you use others?
Yes, they're a bit too squawky. So I just found some. I have a book of bird songs. So I just transcribed the ones that caught my ear, and also some birds from our garden. I live up here in the Hudson Valley, where we have a wonderful dawn chorus. So captured some of those bird songs.
When you said squawky, I immediately thought of the Goose Symphony starring the horn section, the brass section, having a lot of fun. So Ellen, can you talk a little bit about what you heard in the poem that you thought that Anna might be able to work with?
Well, I mean, the poem itself brings tears to my eyes just even now as she read it. It was important to me at a moment when life and work and everything felt overwhelming many years ago, and there was a sense of permission for flight and for being, and as it says, kind of a place in the world. So it was seminal for me, and I do read it often to release myself, in a sense, from the pressures of the world. And also it feels pivotal at this moment because I am stepping down from a position and trying in some ways to find flight and a sense of, in that uncertainty, a sense of it being okay just to be and to figure out what that means next.
Mm-hmm. And Anna, were there any words in particular in the poem that inspired the music in any way, any direct way, or do you feel like the words have a more of an abstract relationship to the music you wrote?
Well, I think there's a sort of vastness in the imagery of, moving across the landscapes, the prairies, the mountains, the rivers. These are very grand images, and that resonates a lot to me as a composer with writing for the orchestra that has the ability to create these large canvases of sound. So I really use that as a point of departure too. And one of the things I love about Cabrillo is, as a festival, it's so open to trying new things. And that's so rare as a composer to have an audience and an orchestra and a conductor and an organization that is open to experimentation. And I'm really excited for this premiere because one of the reasons is it incorporates the use of technology in a new way. It's a piece that involves the augmented orchestra, whereby we expand the sound palette of the orchestra with live electronic processing. So it's, in expanding the orchestra in this way, I'm hoping to create these sort of large sonic canvases that kind of mirror Mary Oliver's visual imagery in this poem.
Interesting. And so will you be here to work with the musicians?
Yes, I'll be there in about a week and a half, and I can't wait. It's been, the last time I was there was in 2019, pre-pandemic, so I'm really looking forward to seeing everybody in just a couple of weeks.
Because I when you said that it's going to use the orchestra in a new way, my first thought was there are a lot of orchestra musicians who might not want to be used in a new way, but I'm assuming that these musicians like that and welcome that. Do you have any experience with that, and any what are some of the things that you think that will be different for them from the point of view of performing the music?
That's a great question. So in terms of performing the music, it's very standard in that way that each musician has their part, and that, Cristi will lead that. But what some examples of the augmentation is, for example, I have a section where the lower strings play this almost fugal-like subject that in my mind should evoke the sound of an organ. But what we do is in real time, we grab the double basses and we pitch shift them down 2 octaves. So you get those subtones that you get in an organ that you wouldn't hear as a composer. I wouldn't have access to those subtones. I'm limited by even though the basses go very low, they don't go quite that low. And then things like having the woodwinds sustain the resonance whilst they then play other gestures. So it'll be really interesting to see how the musicians react. I'm sure to begin with it'll be like, oh, where did that sound come from? Because the concept of the augmented orchestra is also that it's very subtly integrated. Our hope is that, and I should say it's a collaboration with audio engineer Jody Elf, who's also my husband, so which makes it very practical to workshop here at our home in the Hudson Valley. But yeah, so it should be a really sort of seamless and subtle integration of technology and the live orchestra. It shouldn't be distracting in any way.
Wow. Sounds really fascinating. And so, I think that a lot of people who have these set ideas of what classical music is might not really understand what sometimes happens at the Cabrillo Festival. So, Ellen, could you talk about that a little bit? What are some of the things besides the sort of thing that Anna's talking about that the composers have done with this awesome instrument they're given?
Yeah, our festival orchestra is an awesome instrument. That's a wonderful way to put it. And what Cristi has done is curated programs that have just the breadth of possibilities. And I think that's what I'd like to convey to people, is that whatever they think might be contemporary orchestral music or think they might not like about it, they don't know, because it's a whole world of music and use of orchestra. And I really like that in the course of your 2 shows, Suki, that we have heard beautiful lyrical harmonic sounds, and we have heard the use of an orchestra that made it sound like nature, or and that's what's so extraordinary, is being in that space with the talent of Cristi and our players, and the openness to imagine it in different ways and to give voice to these composers who use that instrument with delight and come as much because of the audience and this openness and the players as anything. I mean, they do get to hear their music elsewhere, but there is something very special that happens here, and part of that is the open rehearsals and the ability for people to attune themselves to the vocabulary and to listen to the journey, because a piece is really being sculpted. The orchestra has the music a month before they arrive. They are working on it, but they are working on their part in isolation. And when they come together, it already sounds like amazing, and then you get to hear it really dial in, get on the rails. That's what Cristi is doing and doing with the composer. And it's really fun to listen to, and then, cross your fingers almost every single time. The peak moment is when it's in performance. You get all the adrenaline of everybody. You've got all the rehearsals behind you, and then it's just on fire,
Yeah. Well, composer Anna Clyne, I want to thank you because I have a few questions, sort of historical questions for Ellen next. And thank you, Anna, and I look forward to hearing your piece.
Thank you so much.
All right. So, Ellen, I should tell listeners that this is Talk of the Bay. You are listening to K-Squid, KSQD Talk of the Bay, and we are talking about the Cabrillo Festival of Contemporary Music. And so this hour, we have had quite a tour through the festival. We've had the first part of the hour, I spoke with Cristi Măcelaru, who is the conductor and musical director. And then we had Gabriela Ortiz, who called in from Mexico, and Anna Clyne, who called in from, it sounded like the Hudson Valley. And in the studio with me, I have Ellen Primack, who is retiring this year. And so I wondered if you could cast your mind back. And I know that you told me on Monday that one of the things that I thought was interesting is when you started this job, you didn't know the music. It wasn't something that was your passion to listen to contemporary classical music.
No, I hadn't had much exposure to it. My sibling, Sarah and Cliff, had come to the Cabrillo Festival for years and were passionate about the festival and knew the quality of the festival. So when I was hoping to move here and interviewed, they were already enthusiastic. And as I mentioned, for me, being able to use the talents I have to support artists was really a personal mission. And I had done that in the visual arts, and I love the visual arts, and I knew a lot more. The exposure to this music has been a great gift to me. I am not musical. I know a lot about the creators and a lot about the process now. And it's a joy to be behind the scenes with the rest of the staff. And as we say in our most poetic way, as I quote Tom Fredericks, our job for 50 weeks is to prepare the sacred ground for our artists, and then they come in and they make the magic. And the music is gorgeous. And there are people who we've been able to champion for years, and audience members who have championed us, and watch these composers develop their career and their musical voice. And so that is a great privilege in my life. I love it. I especially love orchestral music that's new. I like all things new myself, in terms of art and in terms of music, and I look forward to enjoying the festival for many more years to come. I'm a big fan of contemporary orchestral music now.
So we'll still see you on the floor.
Oh yeah, I'm actually not retiring. I will be. I'll be consulting with the festival for 6 months as of October 1st part-time and consulting hopefully with other arts organizations and continuing my work and continuing as a huge fan of the festival, cheering on from the seats.
Well, casting our eye from the beauty of the arts to the sad reality of life, can you talk a little bit about funding? And, you talked about how the commission that was done with Anna for you was funded by a donor. And what does the landscape for this music look like right now? And what do you have and what do you need?
Thank you for asking. Right now, we need people to know that our dates are July 30th through August 13, and the best thing you can do to support the arts and music in our community and in this nation and in the world is to show up. We have, patterns of behavior have changed through the pandemic, and people have gotten out of that rhythm of life and being in the world in that way. And it's so rewarding. It's so important. And I just want to encourage people. It will make you feel alive again. And it will make the artists feel alive again to have you there, to have you through the open rehearsals and at performances and to buy tickets and to support us financially with donations to make it so accessible to everyone, which we do. Our audience and patrons have been incredibly generous, but the financial landscape is challenging. Foundation support has diminished. We were so distinctive in what we do, and our vision was that orchestras all across America and the world would start to do works by living composers, and that would become commonplace. And the good news is that is happening more and more. The good news is that the attention to topical programming, relevant programming, diverse programming that Cristi Măcelaru has been doing for these years is becoming part of the musical landscape of all orchestras in America. But our great opportunity now for the Cabrillo Festival is to be ahead of everyone once again, to keep that place at the tip of the arrow. And that's what Cristi will do. We have bold initiatives coming up in the coming years, and we need people to step up and support us in that. And in this community, which has always been so generous, to come and support this, because it is so much of what the Cabrillo Festival is based on the ferment of this community, the sense of openness, the sense of adventure, the sense of intellectual curiosity. And so we need financial support, we need spiritual support, we need people to come and cheer our artists on. And we have an incredible board and staff, and for us to keep doing what we do at the level at which we do, I just invite the whole community to come and enjoy that and continue to champion us.
Wonderful. And we are going out to a much larger community than we used to. And this festival does take place in Santa Cruz, but I will tell those of you listening outside of Santa Cruz that people come from all over to go to this festival. People come and they stay in hotels, and the musicians are coming from all over. So it's located in Santa Cruz, but it's truly an international festival. So we only have a minute left, and my last question is sum up what being associated with this festival means to you personally.
I have had an extraordinary career. I have been surrounded by creative, committed, devoted people who are passionate about music and the arts. What could be a better life?
What could be better? So we have been speaking with Ellen Primack of the Cabrillo Festival of Contemporary Music, which you can learn more about at cabrillomusic.org. Please do go and learn about it. And if you missed part of this, or if you missed Monday's interview, both of them will be available on ksqd.org. So please check out our website, and many of our programs are podcasted, so you can subscribe if that is something you like to do.